What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. And break down what's happening to the overall market thus far, what's going on with their earnings that just came out, what's happening with the data coming out as well, what you should be watching for tomorrow as I give you guys some price predictions. Before I begin things out with this information, before I talk about what the news is saying about Tesla and the markets, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500 into the account, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 free stocks. The offer ends very, very soon. Anyways, let's talk about why Tesla saw this monstrous move for the first couple of hours, just pushing and pushing and pushing before it came back down a little bit. I'm going to break down what caused this and what's going on with it. So, what caused Tesla to pump like this, first and foremost, is we had a lot of bullish news come out for the Chinese EVs out there. BYD proposed a double share buyback, showing a lot of strength in its company and a lot of strength in its EV sector. It also unveiled the U9 supercar, which is supposed to rival that of Ferrari. It's going to cost about $233,000. And this led to a lot of optimism in the EV sector. So BYD led the way up. You guys can see the share prices are up like crazy. And stocks that followed this were all over the place. On top of this, we had Li Auto, another Chinese EV company. They basically had very, very strong earnings and good guidance. So this thing went crazy. It went bananas, pushing very crazily, up almost 19%. And this also contributed to why we saw like NIO, XPeng, and other companies following the trend. So lots of EV optimism has come out thanks to these bullish pieces of news, and Tesla followed the trend. I didn't see anything else that was too big for Tesla specifically. I was trying to look for it over and over again. But nonetheless, I mean, with this optimism that came out and Tesla forming this double bottom like formation, we got a very, very nice bounce. In my video from yesterday, I was a little bit worried about Tesla looking at technicals solely, but that just shows that the news sometimes could come in and trump Tesla, and sometimes it could be very difficult to predict every move Tesla makes because new pieces of news could come out every single day. With that being said, I'm going to still talk about technicals and talk about what's very likely to happen to the share price now that all this bullish news came out. What I think is going to happen. I first want to talk about some data and such before I break that down. So when it comes to data, I just want to mention that tomorrow, it's going to be Tuesday, February 27th, okay? We have the home prices coming out, the index reports. This is going to be at 9 o'clock a.m. It's very minor data, might not affect the market that much. At 9:05 a.m., we have Barr from the Fed giving a speech. And then between 10 and 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the data becomes very serious. At 10 a.m., we have the consumer confidence reports. We have the manufacturing numbers coming out from the Richmond Fed. Not to mention the services data and the Dallas Fed services. All the data is going to be coming out. Now, this data is very important because it's going to give us more insights about what's happening with the Fed's current policies, what's happening with the different sectors in the economy. And this is going to be important because it's going to help us understand if we're seeing more and more signs of contraction. If we get more signals like this could mean that we're getting closer to more contraction, even closer to a potential recession. So that's why it's going to be very important to watch for these. It's going to affect the Fed and also the entire market. All right, so with these important sectors coming out, we'll watch for volatility at 10 a.m. and 10:30. And then when it comes to earnings, I just want to call out a couple of them. We just had Unity and Zoom announce their earnings today. This just came out a couple of minutes ago. And then for tomorrow, we have Norwegian Cruise Line, AutoZone, Lowe's, and just a couple of others. The rest of the earnings for the remainder of the week are quite minor, nothing too crazy. I know we have Dell on Thursday. We also have a lot of retail stocks coming out for Wednesday, like AMC, Salesforce, Snow, and Marathon. But besides that, I mean, I'm not seeing anything that's like that significant or that crazy. So let's talk about how things are looking for earnings. Let's start off with Zoom. Zoom is on fire. We saw a big, big, big jump in the share price. We're actually seeing it rising as high as 13% today. Earnings per share was $1.22, better than expected. Strong revenue. And then when it comes to their guidance right here for 2025 for the fiscal year, Zoom sees $4.85 to $4.88. We were expecting $4.71 per share. That's for the EPS, by the way. They did even better than expected. Their revenue is pretty good, but strong EPS, and that's exactly what investors like. So strong earnings, strong guidance, and Zoom is on fire. No surprises there. Unity, on the other hand, had mixed earnings. It was very mixed because they ended up they missed on EPS by 88 cents. They beat on revenue, but what's even more important is going to be the forecast, and this is where the issues are emerged, basically. The forecast was $415 to $420 million for the fiscal first quarter revenue, and they're saying that it's going to be a part of their strategic portfolio. But unfortunately, it's very important to note that FactSet's consensus was around $534 million. This is well below average, well below what we were expecting, which is not good whatsoever. So very, very bad guidance, in my opinion, not what you would want to see from an investor perspective. They had mixed earnings, but because guidance was not that great, the share price has tanked very hard, and that's the reason why Unity Software is falling. Another piece of news that's important is Alphabet shares have fallen 4% after announcing a pause in their AI image generator Gemini due to inaccuracies in some of the images. So that's very important. That's the reason why we saw this thing fall. And for Tesla, I just want to note I'm not really seeing too many major headlines for Tesla for today. Everything that's Tesla related is just BYD is doing this, BYD is doing that, which is great, right? It's still good news. And this is why the EV sector as a whole is pumping. We're seeing stocks like Li Auto pumping. We're seeing XPeng pumping. NIO is pumping. BYD is pumping, not to mention Rivian, Tesla, and all these other EVs out there. So it's great news, great to see, and we're going to be watching to see how things go. Tesla has a neutral rating from Daiwa Capital. Financial estimates are still very strong for them. You guys can see that right there. The price-price ratio is bouncing a little bit. Tesla gains some strength, and now we're seeing some good signs of Tesla trying to reverse. 51% is what we ended up, or is how many times we tend to be green on Tuesdays. So there's a good chance we might see Tesla attempt to do so again. And watch for volatility at around, I'd say 2 p.m., not to mention 3 p.m. We tend to see more volatility at Tesla, especially as of recently. So far, so good from Tesla. You guys can see what seasonality movement on its side right now. So we'll see how Tesla does. I mean, so far, so good from it. Volume was nice, 112 million, well above average. So good volume. We're getting good volume. We're getting buyers, more activity, and less short volume. Look at the short volume. It's down to 41%. Tesla is showing a lot of life. It's looking pretty good to me. So what do I see for the share price? Well, honestly, guys, we got a nice double bottom like formation. This was an accumulation right here as they were trading shares, accumulating them for these massive institutions. And it looks to me like the market could drag down a little bit, drag Tesla down just a little bit to grab some liquidity. At 198, Tesla might test this and then try to bounce and try to push higher, or it could drop a little bit below that. We could even test like 195 to 196.3. This is where the imbalance happens to be, and then we bounce, right? So either we bounce off 198, or we drop a little bit more, and then we see this thing attempt to bounce. This looks quite symmetrical, so there's a very good chance it might try to target this. That's what the algorithm could be after. 205 to 207. There's a very good chance it's going to try to do so. Now, this is what technicals suggest. I want to warn you guys about one thing, though, and that is to always be open-minded with Tesla. Sometimes my predictions might not come true because of an unexpected piece of news, and I can't really predict that. But I'll still do the best I can, and as you guys can tell, I've been right about the majority of my predictions. I'm a human. I've been wrong as well. I'm not always going to brag about it. I just want to be honest with you. But I do the best I can, and I hope that this still provides value. So to watch Tesla, if this thing starts pushing watch 200 as resistance, 202.5, this high right here, 201.8, then 202.5, 205, and then 207 to fill the gap. For support, watch 198, 190, we technically have 196.3, but it's kind of minor support, 195, then 192. What do I think Tesla's going to do? Here's my prediction. Always be prepared for all these levels because you never know what news could come out. But the most likely possibility is this thing drops a little bit more to 198 and then bounces, or it breaks past that and comes down to like 196 to 195 and then it bounces. But to remain bullish, you have to see Tesla get that bounce. It has to do so. There's a very good chance it may attempt to do it. Now we got this break right here above this 198 area. We broke past that, so there's a good chance we might get a back test and bounce. So it is very likely that somewhere around 196 or 198 Tesla bounces. It drops a little bit, then it bounces. So watch for that very, very carefully. I think that's the most likely possibility. There's a good chance Tesla may continue to outperform thanks to bullish news. So I hope Tesla shows more life and tries to continue to go. But unfortunately, I do have some negative news for people out there. And this is also for Tesla because SPY is looking weaker, guys. SPY is showing some weakness right now. It's not looking as strong as what it was looking like before. And this could be a little bit negative for Tesla, so it might drag us a little bit lower before it tries to bounce. So just watch for this. So on SPY, we have this head and shoulders. Remember who called that out? I called this out in the morning. A head and shoulders was forming on SPY. We lost 507, so our next target was this 505 area, and we're actually in the 505s during the after hours. Watch 505. If we lose that, 503.5 is next. If we bounce off this, 507 could be retested, but overall, it's still looking kind of bearish because of this head and shoulders, bearish looking pattern, and this trend change. In my opinion, SPY is looking a little bit more bearish. So the odds do favor some more downside and a move coming back down. I want to call out that on SPY, looking at the 4 hour, I see 505 coming. And if we lose this, 503.5 is next in 501, followed by 500. So this is turning a little bearish on the PPO, guys. Not the best of signs for the people out there who are trying to be bulls. I just want to mention that that's important because that is going to affect many tickers out there. So there could be a big shift in our algorithms, and this could also affect Tesla. So my prediction is make sure you watch the resistance at 507, 508.5, and 510. To break, to be bullish, you have to break 510, by the way. To be bearish, you want to continue to sink. I think it's going to pop a little bit and start sinking to 505 and maybe even 503.5, then come back and just trade sideways over here. That's what I'm predicting. I do anticipate some more downside, and I think SPY is going to sink. For the QQQ, now this thing has a head and shoulders as well, or whatever kind of formation you want to call it, but it doesn't really matter, right? We have this left shoulder here, we have a head. I do interpret this as kind of like a head and shoulders. So we came all the way down to 436. We're going to be watching the support. We might try to rebound a little bit. We're watching to see if we could hold 436. If we break 438, we could test 439.25, followed by 440. If we lose 436, watch 434 and then 432. In my opinion, this might pop a little bit and make its way down towards 436 and then eventually break through that to 434. With this head and shoulders, there's a very good chance that we might see the QQQ pop and then drop and sink to lower levels. And we'll see how it goes after that. But overall, I'd say the QQQ looks a little bit more bearish. There's a very good chance that this is in the topping process, and this pop and drop that's coming may lead this to sinking even lower. So with this head and shoulders, this also relates to Nvidia because we have something very similar developing on Nvidia. The QQQ looks like it could drop more, by the way, guys. And then for Nvidia, we have something very similar. Because when you look at Nvidia, look at this. They grab liquidity up here, and now it's starting to sell off a bit. We have this support that's holding it up at 785. If we lose that, watch 782, 776, followed by 770. Resistance, watch 790. If we do break this, I'll be watching 792, and then 792. If that breaks, we could get closer to 800, then 807 and 812. But I think the most likely possibility is this thing's going to pop a little bit and make its way down towards 776. So it is looking like it's trying to reverse here. We could see a little bit more downside, so watch for that very, very carefully. The last one is going to be Aapl. Apple's not looking too great because, right, let me just double check this. Aapl has a possible, or it was trying to form an inverse head and shoulders, right? I told you we had a left shoulder here, the head and the right shoulder was forming, but watch for confirmation. I made that very clear yesterday. Watch for confirmation. You have to see if we can get this bounce. It tried to bounce off 182.5, tried to break it, and it failed. And it ended up hitting 180 today, so it's looking weaker. It's looking like it might invalidate this. So look for resistance at 181.36, 182.5, and then 183.5. Watch support around 180.5-ish, and also around 180 flat and 178. We might pop and drop, and we could see some downsides, so just be very careful. And Apple might start sinking towards 180 and 178. So watch for some downside, guys. Apple's looking kind of weaker. With that being said, let me just go over a couple more. Rivian is trying to turn. The EVs are showing some strength. If it could break 11, we have resistance close to 11, a little bit below it. If we break that, I think 11.8 is coming next, so a big push could come to this. There is still some more upside potential for it. It does not look like it's done. We need confirmation. We've got to get past 11 for this to push more. It does have potential to push more nonetheless. SoFi is showing some life, got some bullish news. Going to be looking for a push towards 8.75 and eventually 9. It's showing some life. ARM looking like it's going to be testing, in my opinion, resistance right here at 150. Again, if that breaks, 154 is coming next. We'll see if we can get that break. It does look like an accumulation was forming here, nice inverse head and shoulders. Could push out and start breaking to these higher resistance levels. So it looks a little bit more bullish. It's going to likely come down and bounce and start pushing for 150 to 154. For Super Micro, I would be careful with this because it's been downtrending for 3 days, right? It was at 1,000, then it was at this like 900 area. Now it's at 800 in 70. So you can see it's slowly dropping a little bit. To me, it looks like to be bullish, you want to break 900. To be bearish, you want to see it retest 828. I think it might test 828 and just continue to consolidate for a bit. If we lose 828, a bigger drop could be coming all the way back down towards either 800 or 750. So if we lose support, a big drop is going to be coming. So make sure you watch 828 as a key support. If we fail, if we just kind of like bounce off of it, we could just consolidate for a bit. So that's likely what's been happening the last day. But if we lose 828, we turn a lot more bearish. So to me, it either consolidates or it drops. So be a little bit careful. I just want to give you guys a warning. The IWM might push a little higher, so showing some strength compared to other stocks out there. I think it might backtest 202 again. And we'll see what it does there. It might test that and try to kind of like reject and just trade sideways. But I could see a test of 202 coming a little bit higher if we're just trade sideways. For Microsoft, it looks bearish. As I said earlier, we called this out to a T, guys. We said there was a head and shoulders on Microsoft. Watch for downside. What happened? The downside came. We have a gap to fill at 405. I think it's going to be coming to 405 very soon. More downside is coming, in my opinion. AMD showing some weakness right here. Going to be looking at support at 174. If we lose this, a bigger drop is coming towards 170. I do anticipate 174. For the VIX, okay? The VIX on the 4 hour is looking kind of weak, but this could always change directions. It's very manipulated. It didn't really drop much. It was just completely flat. If this thing gets above 13.99, starts pushing upwards towards 14.3, that could be a bearish signal for the markets. So we'll see if it does that or not. Otherwise, it's still looking kind of weak. For the dollar index, this is actually looking a little bit weak, but the dollar could be very manipulated. There's not much that can be said about it. If we lose 103.78, we're going to be looking for a bigger drop towards these lower levels. If it bounces off this, because it's at support right now, look for a bounce towards 103.9. It's been trading sideways between the 200 and the 20 EMAs for quite some time. So we'll see if it breaks or not. It's showing some weakness here. We'll see if it tries to bounce or not. But it's not really affecting the market as much as it typically does. If it does get a bounce up to 200, that could change things. Coinbase got a nice breakout. We're going to be looking for a test of 200. I don't know if it's going to get stopped there, but it could push a little bit more. It does not look like it's done to me. So 200, then 205 are possible targets. Google is, in my opinion, looking kind of weak. Watch 138 as support. If we lose that, 136 is next. I do believe it's going to test one of those levels. We're currently at 139, by the way, so we'll see if 138 holds us. If not, 136 is next, and 135. For Amazon got a nice rejection off this 75 area. It's kind of turning right here. I see 173.3 coming. Then if that fails us, there's 172.5 in this gap to fill at 170. So this chart's looking a little bearish. It's starting to turn a little bit. We're going to be looking for a test of 173. If that fails us, a bigger drop is going to be coming. I could see this eventually coming down to 170. So be very, very careful. For Meta, there's also a similar setup. We actually have this unfilled gap down here around 474, aligning with our 50 EMA. Looks like we're going to be testing 474 on Meta, and we'll see what it does if it fails there. 470 is coming, so we'll see how it goes. Anyways, that is it for the video. Thank you all so much for listening. Tesla is showing a lot of strength. It could push higher later on. Might get dragged down to like 198 and then bounce, or it could even, if it loses that 196, could come down a bounce. We'll see where it bounces at. But overall, the chart is showing strength because of bullish news, which is helping it outperform the market. SPY and the QQQ are dragging it down just a little bit, but Tesla's becoming stronger, and Tesla wants to start pushing to 200 plus. We could see a nice breakout to 205 again, but we have to wait and see if we can get that bounce. So watch for that for tomorrow. With that being said, we'll see what happens on the news, guys. Remember, guys, the news is very important for Tesla. Sometimes unexpected things can happen, and we'll see how it goes. Have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. Tesla in the market to the moon because the long term is very bright. And peace out.